are listening to this, welcome to my memory locker. InternalCorporation is much more than just singularity containment site, and this game in particular. Well, this is a story of how it all began. It was 2016, and 11-year-old me created the Intelligent Builders brand. Yep, I know, InternalCorporation didn't exist at that time. The first thing I had built back then was an Intelligent Builders computer core, but it was the HQ itself. It's literally a copy of PPHQ, I know. And now, here's Intelligent Builders computer core. Wait, that's the wrong one. Thankfully I didn't release this one, otherwise I would get a ton of backlash. There we go. This is what IBCC used to look like, and it's the very first version of IBCC. I actually took an uncompiled game called Green Tech Computer Core and then rebranded the entire game. Yeah, I do not have any knowledge of building back then, and the only thing I was doing is making logos and such using MS Paint. The funny thing about this game is that I kept rewriting the meltdown during its development. But then, for some apparent reason, it exploded in the community back in the same year as well. I'm not sure how did that happen, but I was enjoying my newfound fame as well. I did get to meet new people as well and make friends with some of them. There's one friend that I met that I'm still friendly to this day. Anyways, that's the end of this particular memory. Here's the more memories in this game. Thank you for listening.
Yes, it was also the same year when I created IBCC. Out of all the people I met back in 2016, one stood out of the other. It's YT Police Force, and when I met him back then, he was known as Factbook 2. We first met in the comment section when that was a thing before it was removed, and eventually I made him an admin in IBCC. Then he brings along Foray next, known as the Coder is Cool 202 when we first met. From here, they both became admins of my game, and I even met some, let's say, some notable names in the community at the time as well. But I have forgotten some of them as well, sadly. Furthermore, YT Police Force had went on to become the head commander of the HR and co-founder. Wow, that's a long title for a rank. Other than that, I'm glad that I have met them, because without them, my journey in this community would be a lot different than what it had been. Maybe one of the aforementioned friends is reading this, and if it's you, then I wanted to extend my gratitude to you, since without you, I would be really lonely and there would be nothing much for me during the IBCC days. Okay, that's all I gotta say. Thank you for sticking along till the end.
So, one of my friends ran the Nagayan 323, in which I'm going to refer to as Brian for this, by the way. Brian was creating something called Brian Builders, and honestly, I really wanted to help. I ended up becoming a developer for Brian Builders, where I worked on a computer core with him. I even created a facility in space. Yeah, it was terrible for today's standards, but it's something to remember and cherish anyways. Also, Brian Builders wasn't the only group I worked with. I even worked for Ambertech and Master Productions. I do not really remember much about Ambertech, but the last thing I remember about them is that they were botted as well as hacked, which causes Ambertech to lose its founder. So, Master Production was founded. Master Productions was the successor of Ambertech, and I used to be a chairman there. Can't really remember much about it other than me being really active there, and I get to try out whatever project they were working on. But then I was exiled from the group for whatever reason, which caused me to leave their Discord server. And finally, there's a group called IT Tech Corp. Nothing much to say about it, but yeah, I made several things for them, so there's that. Not gonna lie, maybe taking a break from working alone is such a breath of fresh air for me, and it was fun collaborating with others. It's sad that some of them are short-lived, but I had fun regardless. Yep, that's the end of this memory. See you in the next one. Yes. I vividly remember the days where I was toxic in IBCC's comment section before I eventually closed it. I got comments where I had been told that IBCC is a copy of PBCC, in which it's false because of its layout in the first place, but in reality, it's a copy of GTCC. Well, even though with the aforementioned comments that I received back then, within it are comments saying that I had used a lot of free models, or basically a bad game in general, and I ended up attacking people who criticized the game and threatened to create a script which bans people that dislike the game. I scoffed at how I acted to others back then, and I deeply apologize if it's one of you in the comments back in 2016. I honestly deserved these criticisms back then, and I did try to build as well, but obviously my builds were utterly trash. Same goes with my scripting as well, even though I'm proud of an operating system I have made on this platform. Anyways, thanks for listening to this memory. Kinda wanna lambast my past for being too, Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Well, that's one way to try to fix my mistakes, but ended up doing the same mistake all over again. It was 2017, and 1 year has passed ever since I had released Intelligent Build's computer core to the public. To celebrate it, I decided to develop something called IBCC Rebirth. It was basically an overglorified version of the first version of IBCC, but with a new twist. It is obviously still a clone of GTCC, but to me, it's more of me refining IBCC. There were promised features that actually made it in, such as the working emergency coolant. For some apparent reason, there's a transit system in here as well. I'm not quite sure why it's not there if it only hits the decoolant area, but it's there, I guess. Also, during the development of IBCC Rebirth, I made an account called IBCC Rebirth, where people can send friend requests to that account so they can playtest IBCC Rebirth. I abandoned that account after the beta version has released, and I sadly lost access to the account. Also, yep, that's all for this memory. I still find the RGB mainframe hilarious though. Yeah, I thought it was a great idea back then, but it kind of looks like a wannabe way to make a mainframe gaming to me now. We're now entering the 2018 era, where I was still developing IBCC Rebirth back then. During this time, there was a new series going on made by Elevators, one of the most well-known people in the Reactor community, and the series is known as Sci-Fi or Bust. Sci-Fi or Bust is a series where Ellie himself and the crew review a variety of core games and rate it depending if it's worthy of the sci-fi status. And yep, IBCC was tested in the first episode of this series, and while it got the bad status in the episode, it would be considered bust in this era. I was kinda mad when that happened back in 2018, so I had tried to fix the game, but I wasn't really able to. I actually removed a chunk of IBCC, which is the underground offices, as well as several things, but it didn't do that much justice. However, I came back to it in 2018. Well, I'll talk more about it in a next memory, but for now, that's all. But I still like the part where one of the crew stated that the reactor is a brick.
Oh my god, why is the reactor a brick? It's an actual brick.
So, I was discussing with someone to be the group holder for Intelligent Builders, but then, Intelligent Builders is already taken as a group name on this platform. Another name I thought about is Aerotech, but that's also taken. And finally, I fixed the name to InternalCorporation. Sadly, the group wasn't created and all the other groups that has the same name are unofficial groups. Anyways, I started to rebrand IBCC Rebirth as I figured InternalCorporation needs a debut game. So I rebranded the game to InternalCorporation Computer Core. During that time, IBCC Rebirth wasn't in the 1.0 version yet. And so, InternalCorporation Computer Core was finally released fully, formerly known as IBCC Rebirth. That was a tough game to work for me at the time, since my developing capabilities were very limited back then. Anyways, that's all for this memory. But the story of InternalCorporation wasn't over just yet. See you soon. Well, this is going to be a big memory. Not only there's InternalCorporation projects in the past, but also Intelligent Builders projects. There's some places, such as Project 2017, which is a headquarters with a reactor below it. There's also Project Physics, which is a facility in space with it rotating depending on the pressure. And finally, there's Intelligent Builders Computer Core 2. That looks hideous to be honest. But I'm going to go in depth with two projects. Project Startup, here's Project Startup. This is where the original SPHR was created. Basically a tame version of the SPHR Mark II. Yep, it's still a ball, I know. But yeah, Project Startup had a lot of potential. But honestly, I think it's too bad to work on nowadays. I also can't remember why I had cancelled it in the first place. It's a shame because I planned things like coolant pump maintenance to it as well. I'm going to show you the startup so you can see what it used to look like back then.
Stabilized black hole reactor startup sequence initiated. Please exit the SPHR chamber immediately. SPHR's safeguard has been formed, generating black hole solution. You may experience intense shaking.
And finally, here's Project Cloud. Project Cloud is meant to be a database facility that you will gradually unlock more areas as you level up. But it's only years later that I found out that's a bad idea, since if you're level 1, you get stuck in the very first zone, while getting more levels grants you access to more things. But yeah, it's not meant to be a core game after all, but there are server racks that you can start up. I basically used some of my ideas for my project that, well, you probably have played previously. The game had went through a few versions before finally getting cancelled. Anyways, that's all I have to say. While it's sad to see those projects cancelled in the first place, it really made me see how far I had gone from that day. Both of these projects were made back in 2018 and 2019 respectively, but there's a reason why I had cancelled them. But that's for another memory. Anyways, thanks for your time here, and I'll see you in the next one. So, it was June of 2018, and I was testing out the software, or a digital audio workstation called FL Studio. I followed through a tutorial and I made my first song called Reactions. However, I kind of felt embarrassed to share my first song since I think it sounds bad to me nowadays. Surprisingly, some people liked it. It's just the same pattern with tempo changes around the song, but obviously I one-upped it with future songs back then, such as Boom Mum Dead, as well as Pixelated Dimensions. This became my passion after a few months, and I went on to composing more music, till I eventually became a composer for Discover in 2019. And I also started to compose soundtracks from some of my own games as well, including this one. It even caused me to abandon my old projects and eventually canceling them, but it's nice to be free from managing my own things. That's all for this memory, and yeah, I'm still composing music, but less frequently nowadays. I usually compose when I feel like it. That's one day to remember. It's the merger of InternalCorporation. So it was 2020 and I decided InternalCorporation was putting too much pressure on me. So I planned a merger with a group called Zenitsu Incorporated. Initially, I hesitated to do research earlier that year that I chose not to reveal, but then I decided to have the group merge in June of 2020. As a result, all of the assets from Project Startup and Project Cloud were transferred to that group, and the remaining projects in InternalCorporation were cancelled. That's kind of a way to get something off your chest, but the story of InternalCorporation doesn't end there. Also, in the same year, I had performed one final update to InternalCorporation Computer Core, as well as Intelligent Builders Computer Core. And I gotta say, I'm feeling proud of it, even though I have done better than that. I also had to fix the stuff that Sci-Fi Bus criticized IBCC for, but it's worth it in the end. And for Zenitsu Incorporated, well, I had a lot of fun working with them, even though I had since drifted away from that group, as well as discovered to pursue as a solo developer for one last game, in which I'll get to in a bit. That is all for this memory, and it was a pleasure to talk about it. I'll see you in the next one.
5, 33, 41, 18.
Oh, it's that iconic code that most computer cores used.
So,
Fun fact,
remember
the
that I
facility
mentioned
you're
that
in
I
also
pursued
uses
as a
this code.
solo developer on the game previously? Well, this is the game. It's called InternalCorporation Singularity Containment Site, or ICCC for short. I aim for this to be the best and last core game I will ever make, because if this is my last core game, I really want to make it the best core game I have ever put out. Yep, it took 3 years for the game to finally be done, but it's worth it. It was surreal to see how far I had came in this community. Obviously, I didn't want to make the game to be another generic game that you would see in this community, so I went ahead and added a lot of things to it. And my vision for Singularity Containment Site is that you do not have to start the reactor to play the game. I gotta say, it's such a huge jump from Intelligent Builders Computer Core, where there was basically nothing to do but wait for either the meltdown or the freeze up. And I didn't mean to outshine the other core games in the community. I just want to make Singularity Containment Site the best I can possibly can. And for you player, if you're sent here by that game, then I must warmly welcome you. This game is more on the personal side of things and not a game that's meant to be played on a daily basis. Anyways, that's all for this memory, and believe it or not, the The next memory is the last memory that I have in store for you. So, after all we had went through, I guess it's time to look back. Yep, still pre-recorded, so here we go. It has been 5 years since I left the reactor community, and here I am in 2029. And I trust you enough to share this to you. Looking back to when I first joined the community in 2016, it was all peaceful, and messaging apps like the one we usually use nowadays were rarely used. Well, what happened nowadays? Well, drama and all that. The search of core games that, no offense, didn't deserve any attention, but somehow got the attention for some reason. Nowadays, I have lost interest in the reactor concept as a whole, as it's just the same startup and meltdown concept that you see in most core games. As for you, I gotta thank you for sticking around to listen to the memories in the game. It's a pleasure to talk about them with you. Now, you're wondering, what can you do with this game? Well, there's nothing much to do other than have fun with the facility, I guess. Oh wait, since you have all 12 numbers, you can assemble those and enter the second code in the mainframe. That's all from me, and I'll miss talking to you about the memories. See you on the other side. Happens when computer cores follow suit. Also, we sell donuts, not pizza. Sorry. Well, this is it. You have entered the second code. Many players expected something crazy like an instant meltdown, but no. This is another ending that you can get. This is my way of saying thank you for playing this game. You had explored every memory and what I had to say. Unfortunately, my journey in the community had come to an end. But I gotta say, I do have future endeavors that I'm more passionate about. Like every good thing, they all come to an end. And this is the end of a chapter. Once again, thank you for playing my game, and I'll see you on the other side.